consolation to them, but also to get together to participate in a ritual, which in some ways is new for all of us. And on some level, that's a moment for Shehecheyanu, thanking God for bringing us to a moment in time where we have an opportunity to support the family 30 days after the passing. We're here, of course, to provide a little bit of an opportunity for the family here and friends here in St. Louis to participate in this great mitzvah of Nichum Avilim, providing comfort and consolation to those who have suffered losses. So therefore, you're involved in a very significant mitzvah today, right? It's an act of altruism to come, especially on Mother's Day. Probably there are many things that you could be doing or not doing on Mother's Day, just enjoying yourself and relaxing, to come here and be part of this service. And I know that each of you has come because of your great love for this family and to pay your respects. So we are going to join together in the traditional fashion first, and we're going to daven. We're going to pray the afternoon service, and we'll provide the mourners an opportunity not only to recite the prayers and to contemplate life and to think a little bit about why we've gathered here, but also to recite formally the mourner's Kaddish, which is part of the experience of davening, of praying together. And then we'll have an opportunity to do something a little bit more creative and to share some thoughts and feelings and emotions. And then we'll bring it to a close and we'll do the most traditional Jewish thing, which is there's food in the other room. And so everybody will have an opportunity to eat and to join together. And that too is a mitzvah, by the way, because you're joining together in fellowship with members of the family and providing them comfort and consolation. So I thank you all for being with us. And I'll ask you please to open the red weekday Siddur. This is the prayer book that we utilize in our synagogue. It is not by any means the only prayer book that people use. There are many different forms of this prayer book, but this is the right of the conservative movement, which hopefully is comfortable. And you'll feel free to utilize the words of the prayer book or any other words that might be meaningful or consequential to you. The good thing about this prayer book is there's Hebrew and English. So those of you who don't speak English, you'll have the Hebrew opportunity as well. You got that one? Very good. And an opportunity to participate in Hebrew or in English. We'll begin on page 120. There you'll find a psalm or a selection of psalms. This is Ashrei Yoshvei Beitecha. This is an acrostic, a Hebrew alphabetic acrostic, one of the ways in which our ancestors praised God, which was available to them was the Hebrew letters. And by the way, we believe the Hebrew letters have power and efficacy unto themselves. So it's quite a mystical notion. We're going to join on page 120. Ashrei Yoshvei Beitecha, Od Yehalelu Chesed. ממך אלוהי המלך בעברך שבך לעולם ועד. אתה כבודותיך ודברי מצוותיך שמחה וסעודות. טוב אדוני לך ולחמה וכל עשה לי. תהילת אדוני ידבר כי ויברך כל בשר שם קודשו לעולם ועד. ואנחנו נברך יה, ואתה בידורה, hallelujah. If you're comfortable doing so, I'll ask you please to rise for the Chatzi Kaddish, and then we'll turn to the standing prayer known as the Amidah. יתגדל ויתקדש שמך, ועלמה תברך חירותי וימית מלכותי, בחיי חול וביומי חול, ובחיי דכל בית ישראל. Pagana obisman karine vimenu, Ei shmei rava memora, Deodam me'omaya. Yitvarach v'yishtabach, v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh, v'yithadar v'yithalel v'yithalal, shemei dekudesha v'yitzu. Ve'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, u'shvechata v'nechemata, ta'miran ve'alma. Amen. We're going to turn to the east, which I believe is in this direction, since I know that Bnei is that way, west, and so we're going to be heading east. We'll join together for the Amidah, which begins on page 122b. We face east because that is the direction of Jerusalem. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu Elohei Avotenu Elohei Avraham Elohei Yitzchak Elohei Yaakov
Elohei Sarah, Elohei Mika, Elohei Rachel, Elohei Leah. El Hagedol, Hagibor, Hanora, El Elyon, Goel Chasadim Tovim, Vekoneh Hakol, Vezocher Chasdei Avot, Umegido El Miglei Meihem, Nemar Shemo V'Yahar. Melech Ozer U'Kohen U'Moshiach U'Magen, Baruch Atah Adonai, Magen HaKahal U'Bokeh Tzara. אתה גיבור לעולם עיניים, מחיים מתים אתה רב ומושיע. מחכה לחיים לחסד, מחיים מתים ברחמים רבים. סומך נופלים רופא קולים, מתיר אסורים. ומקיים אמונתו לשמי עבר, יתקבלו בגבורות, ופתאום אליו. מלך ממיד ומכהן ומצמיח ישועה, ונאמן אתה לחיות מתים, ברוך אתה אדוני מחיי המתים. נקדש את שמך בעולם כשם שמקדישים אותו בשמי מרום, ככתוב על יד נביאך וכרזה אל זה ואמר, קדוש 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 אדוני צבאות, כל הארץ כבודו. לעומתם ברוך יאמרו, ברוך כבוד אדוני כמוהו. ובדברי קודשך כתוב לאמור, ימלוך אדוני לעולם, אלוהי ציון, לדור ודור הללויה. לדור ודור נגיד אודך, ולנצח נצחים קדושתך נקיש, ושבחך אלוהינו מפינו לא ימוש לעולם ועד. כי מלך גדול וקדוש אתה, ברוך אתה אדוני, האל הקדוש. שלום אבינו ויעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל ואמרו אמן. יעשה שלום, יעשה שלום, שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל. הוא יעשה שלום, יעשה שלום, שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל. הוא יעשה שלום, יעשה שלום, שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל. הוא יעשה שלום, יעשה שלום, שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל. יתגדל ויתקדש שמי דבר, ועלמא תברך חירותי וימית חפצי בחיי חול ומחול, וחיי לכל בית ישראל, בהגנה בזמן קריב יברו אמן. יהי שמי דבר מברך לעולם ולעולם. יתברך
וישתבח, ויתפאר, ויתרומם וינשא, ויתהדר, ויתעלה, ויתהלל, שמי לקדושה בריחו, נעלה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה, ושפחתה ונחמתה, דאמירן בעלמא ואמרו אמן. יתגבר לצלתו ובאותו לכל ישראל, קודם אבוהון בבשמיא, ואמרו אמן. יהי שלמה רב עמית שמעיה וחיים עלינו ועל כל ישראל, ואמרו אמן. ועושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל ועל כל יושבי תבל, ואמרו אמן. If you're comfortable, ask you please to rise as we turn to Aleinu L'Shabeach on 135. Aleinu L'Shabeach Adon Hako,
Laten Gilal Yotzer Breshit, Shelo Asanu K'Goy Haratzon, Velo Samanu K'Mishpachot Adama, Shelo Sam Chalkeinu Kahem, V'Gor Aleinu K'Chol Hamorah, V'Anachnu Gorim, U'Mishachavim U'Olim, Lifnei Melech, Malchei HaMelechim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Unotei Shamayim ve'osei haaretz, Moshe b'karo v'shamayim b'ma'al, U'shtinatu zo, v'govim Elohim. Hu Eloheinu Echad, Emet Malkeinu Efezu Hato, Kakatu V'Torato, V'yadata Hayom, V'ashivota Elevacha. Ki Adonai Hu Elohim, Asher Shamayim Ima'al, V'yal ha'aretz,
כתוב בתורתך, אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד.
למלך כל הארץ, ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד, ושמו
Friends, we're going to remain standing and recite together the Mourner's Kaddish, which you can find on page 136. And of course, we are keeping in our consciousness Dr. Michaels. And I wanted just to pause for a moment. Is there anybody else who is reciting Kaddish for somebody in your community, your family, friendship group, whom you are reciting Kaddish? You can say who it is for us. Anybody else who's in the midst of still saying Kaddish? Wonderful. So we'll keep everybody in our consciousness, and I'll ask you please to join together with me on page 136. I want to add that I'm saying a special Kaddish for a young man who was taken from us far too soon, Michael Holbrook. His family are really wonderful people and very important to me. So we're reciting Kaddish for him as his family are unable to do so. 136. Yitkadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah, v'yalma yivarach v'yirtei v'yamrit malkutei, v'chayechon v'yomechon, v'chayei l'chol beit Yisrael, v'agala v'zman karim v'yimru amen. Yehei shemei Rabbah mevarach le'olam umei amaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpahar v'yitromah v'yitnaseh. V'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shemei b'kudusha b'richu le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechemata ta'miran be'alma v'imru
Okay, we're gonna try to get them back.
Jenna, did you text them? Sam, did you text them?
Yeah.
All right.
So I got information, they lost power, they're having to reboot, so it'll take a few minutes.
Thank you.
Arthur, my condolences to you and Jonathan and to Samantha and Jenna.
Thank you,
And-
Jim.
Jerry was a wonderful father-in-law, it seemed to me. You have your own opinion.
No, of course.
And,
I've seen it better.
and I think he was a great grandfather, at least from all appearances. And what a shame that all of us come to an end eventually. Yeah.
As far as the grandchildren go, for all those of you who are lucky enough to hear or be at the funeral and hear the grandchildren speak, nothing needs to be added to that.
It looks like from the chat, other people in St. Louis might have lost power, so it might be a wider issue.
Wow, no kidding.
Thank you, Sue, for that information.
How unexpected, right?
Grandpa's playing tricks.
He is. That's a great example.
That's what I was thinking.
Too much religion for Jerry.
He preferred a different sitter, right?
He always asks the most pointed questions, you know? Like, I remember when there was some sort of Supreme Court ruling on pornography, and he wanted to know if we thought what we thought about that ruling.
How old were you at that time?
I was pretty young. I didn't even know what pornography was.
This needs to win.
While we're getting ready with the last.
I was just trying to see if the Blues hockey game has been interrupted, which is being played in St. Louis. And if there's no power there, then that tells you it's a very big deal.
Maybe will put us in the right frame of mind to do what it is that we need to do next.
But it's a commercial, so I can't tell yet.
Which we'll turn to. Take And everybody here who needs to be here now?
Yes, we're here. Yeah, I think we're okay. I think so.
So, not surprisingly, these wonderful women for today. And it's so nice to be able to work with people who care so deeply and knowledgeable and sensitive, and put together a little extra time is probably a little fancy dancing. Okay.
Thank you, Rabbi. Mom,
No,
coming through very good on our end.
Hold on, I think we're trying to get my mom's computer back going.
A real professional.
And I was asked to begin by sharing. You can imagine that that was a book that he wrote when? In his young age. And then later on in his lifetime, supposedly pens these other works, which are far more, I mean, I would say even sardonic. Right? They're just a little darker. They're a little bit more about the reality of life, right? Things sag, right? Gets a little dark. People come, people go. Thank you. People go again. They come on Zoom again, which is great. But I think there's a realization that we move from away from this notion of the beauty and the power of erotic into the realm of living our lives. One of the things my mom and dad just celebrated their 60th wedding anniversary. And my mom was reminding my dad, she said, you know, I remember those early days and it was really powerful, but there's something about 60 years later sitting next to one another and being in love. And it's even more powerful, I think, powerful and profound than the love we had when they got married at 21. So that was, I don't know why.
Yes, did.
Yeah.
You got married at 21? Wow, that's great. That's great.
67 years.
That's
Wow.
wonderful. So I was asked to share this selection, which may be familiar to some of you. And it may be familiar because you may remember the song from the 60s, right? So, to everything there is a season and a time for every purpose under heaven. You can say, a time to be born, right? A time to be born and a time to die, a time to plant and a time to pluck that which has been planted, a time to kill and a time to heal, a time to break and a time to build up, a time to weep and a time to laugh, a time to mourn and a time to dance, a time to cast away stones and a time to gather stones together, a time to embrace and a time to refrain from embracing, a time to seek and a time to lose, a time to keep and a time to cast away, a time to rend and a time to sow, a time to keep silent and a time to speak, a time to love and a time to hate, a time of war and a time of peace. For everything, there is a season and a time for every purpose under heaven. You'll note that there are 14 pairs here. Anybody remember another 14? Just finished Passover. There are 14 sections to the Haggadah of Pesach. Some count it as 15 if you separate Motzi Matzah into two, it's 15. But it represents in Hebrew letters Yud Daled, which is Yad, hand, power. And I want to make sure that you all know that the fine gentleman we've come to remember had a hand in creating the people who are here today, and had a hand, a strong hand, a powerful hand in creating the family which is gathering here in this friendship group. So without any further ado, we're going to turn this over to those who are going to share with us some remarks. I understand there are at least 3 speakers. And if anybody else would like to add something, we'll make sure the carpet is available for you as well. Should I get out of this chair and you can have it? You're good, you're good?
Yeah, because they can see us.
Okay.
They can hear us. It has been 30 days since our dad and mom's husband, Jerry Michaels, died. Sheloshim, which you now are familiar with, thank you, Rabbi, the Hebrew word for 30, commemorates the death of a loved one and the first stage of Jewish mourning. During Sheloshim, you come across many firsts. The first Shabbat dinner without dad, the first Pesach Passover Seder, and even his birthday on April 21st, 15 days after he died. Jerry would have been 89 years old.
This week's Torah portion, a more from Vayikra, Leviticus, teaches us about the laws regulating our lives and the way sacrifices by the priests should be presented. Special dates within the Jewish calendar are also named and described. The Sabbath, Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, and the pilgrimage festivals of Pesach, Shavuot, and Sukkot. We are in the time of Stirat HaOmer, the counting of the Omer, which is 49 days from Pesach to Shavuot, the giving of the Torah. The period of counting the Omer is a time of semi-mourning, during which traditional Jewish customs forbids haircuts, shaving, and parties with dancing. So whether we were in Sheloshim or not, it is still a time of mourning. Tonight will be the 23rd day of the counting of the Omer, and we have 7 days
Prior from Dad's funeral to
get
get
to 30 for Sheloshim. Sorry.
no apologies. The name of this week's portion, Amor, means speak, and we are here this evening to speak about, mourn, and celebrate our dad. In brief, Dad was born in 1933 on the south side of Chicago. He was confirmed at South Shore Temple, went to the University of Illinois for a BA in psychology, received his doctor of veterinary medicine, and most importantly, met and married our mom, Marion Lee. He then bought a veterinary practice in Crystal Lake, a small town of 5,000 people in northern Illinois, near nothing, when they moved there in 1959.
Still near nothing.
But these are just the milestones you can see from the outside.
He was a wonderful father and husband, worked round the clock at his veterinary practice, where he began with visiting farms as well as pets. Fox Valley Animal Hospital is where he worked and mentored generations of doctors and staff. Dad also loved reading and learning. He had a great sense of humor. Well, most of his jokes were funny. He definitely would be tickled that this week's Torah portion also covers the laws of profanity, and probably would have a few questions about that for the rabbi.
We were lucky to have so much time with Dad. In the last 3 weeks of his life, the 3 of us, Mom, Vanessa, and I, took care of him. It was a gift of time. We were back together in the house where we grew up and where Mom and Dad lived for over 55 years.
During Sheloshim, as we continue to incorporate grief into our daily lives, there are still memories and sadness for all of us. It is very difficult to do the last load of laundry with Dad's clothes, to see his swim bag, which he used daily until the very end, to view his messy desk filled with files, his notes on Shakespeare, and to wonder what to do with all of his many books and belongings. Dad went swimming every day, and I have just resumed my daily swim at our local JCC, and at the pool, I am reminded of Dad.
Dad was an avid stock trader and investor. I now have his all-important little black book of stock picks. Interestingly, when I looked at the first page of the book, It said managing Atopica, October 10th, 2014. And I thought, well, this must be some special investment portfolio. But as I read more closely, I realized they were pages of notes from a veterinary seminar he had attended. And it was actually about managing different types of canine dermatitis. You can look that up at Atopica. A perfect example of how we never questioned his very different interests that were a very natural part of him. I'm amazed at how he stayed on top of everything. Just the week before he died, he was watching his treasured Jim Cramer stock market show and putting handwritten entries into his half-filled black book. He was also researching his upcoming great book session on Hamlet and busy thinking about his grandkids and great-granddaughters' legacies. I hope to complete many of the empty pages in his book with my own calculations, stock analysis, and thoughts on the world.
There's something oddly comforting to doing things by the numbers. Our sadness is not mathematical. It comes in waves, and we know it will ebb and flow as time goes by. But we are comforted by the ways of Jewish mourning and how it grounds us in time and allows us to stay tethered to our lives even in death. We are also comforted and grateful for everyone who is with us here tonight. Right.
I'm using my last. Right. So, out of memory.
Right. We want to thank everyone for coming. We're so glad you're here. And after we finish praying and saying, we have a little more praying to do, we have a beautiful buffet for you. And we know that Jerry would want to take you all out to dinner.
Yes. And it might have been, more like Steak and Shake, where
That was his favorite.
Come here and love Steak and Shake and take the whole family and friends out. But really and truly, please stay and, we can share more memories of Jerry and just be together and enjoy. And like Rabbi said, it's a mitzvah, right? To, partake.
And we thank all of our Zoomers for coming back on, and hopefully we'll have no more glitches. And we can't give you a meal, but when we see you in person, we know Jerry would insist that he'd take you out as well.
Which we promise to do.
Yeah.
Not sure how to follow that.
You got the whole thing.
Especially when you start crying. like mine did. So some of you might have heard this already, but just a few random thoughts about Jerry. Jerry was always cold. Even on the hottest day in August, when visiting St. Louis, he would wear a sweater outside. And two, when he came into our house, because Wendy keeps it so cold.
It's true.
I never once heard him complain about his arthritis, even though we could all see how it must have hurt him. I got to see so much of the world because of Jerry and Marion. Our family trips left us all with memories we will never forget. Family meant the world to Jerry. At Vanessa's daughter's bat mitzvah, at Lital's bat mitzvah, just the two of us were off to the side while pictures were being taken. Jerry nodded toward the group of others who were probably deciding, or more like bickering, about who should go next in the photos, and said to me, "Scott, this is what it's all about." He cherished his clan. He's probably the only person whose idols were Shakespeare, Michael Jordan, and Jim Cramer. He was often the smartest or amongst the smartest in the room, but he didn't show off. In fact, he was always interested in other people's thoughts and opinions. Sometimes when he, in their opinion, went too far with his questioning of others, Marion, Vanessa, and Wendy would hit the ceiling. He got a little personal with people. Finally, I learned from Mary and Jerry that no matter how long a couple were together, the flame for each other could last. When watching them together, I would often think about how they must have been as a young college couple. I really don't think their feelings for each other changed over the years. Thanks.
Is there anybody else who would like to say a word or two or share a thought I know it's unscripted, but I was told to do this.
I was thinking actually about, with funeral, everybody
All I
says,
remember about Jerry is that he was a funny little guy, very, very funny. And I met him at the bat mitzvah of the girls. Our girls, both of them, happened to be in the same grade of my boys, and they both went to chapter. And all I could think of right now was coming. I know he was funny. I know we went on the side and we started talking. And now when you started all talking, I do remember he wanted to make sure somehow that my boys will eventually be something with your girls. I just came out. And I thought about it, and I don't know if you can picture that, but I do recall him saying that, tell me about your boy, what does he want? I'm like, okay, so I just wanted to say that. He was a
Thanks, Debbie.
sweetheart,
Thank you,
and
Debbie.
he was a very funny guy, and so it's nice to know.
I thought of one thing we forgot from the paragraph, that we thank everyone for coming, people who got on airplane flights or drove down Highway 55.
Right.
Anybody else?
People want to talk. about-
how at funerals, everybody says all these wonderful things about.
Tell us who they are. so we know.
Are you?
Hi, may I say something? Hello?
I
don't think they can hear me.
Yeah, make sure that the.
Hey, Wendy, can you hear me?
I don't think they can hear right now, but we're trying
Is
to
there
get
someone?
it. Yeah.
Oh,
Either-
thank you. It says Sam.
Yeah, got you.
Okay.
Go ahead, whoever was talking.
Oh, Wendy,
Yes,
can you hear me? It's Nadiva.
yes.
I was really struck with the fact that you talked about Jim Cramer. I had no idea that Jerry was a listener of Jim Cramer, but it reminded me that I think my brother Seth was a precursor to Jim Cramer, and they just had such a special bond. And that's all I wanted to say.
Who was
Thank
that?
you. That's Nadiva Feinstein, a dear friend from where we grew up in Northern Illinois. That's her.
And then I've known Jerry for over 60 years, most of my life.
Hey, watch it. We're the same age, Nadiva.
Okay,
Exactly the same age.
I'll take 10 years off then. How's that?
And Nadiva, my
Yes.
son's name is Nadiv, so you're the only
Oh,
other.
who is this?
Yeah, so beautiful, thank you.
Wonderful.
Anyone else?
Yeah, I would like to say something.
Can you pin them?
Okay.
Please introduce yourself too.
I didn't know.
Dale Morton. I'm here with my wife, Ellen. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay. About 4 or 5 years ago, I found out that Jerry ate lunch every day at the Arby's on the corner of Main Street and Route 14, right across from the pet hospital. And he said he would eat a chicken sandwich every day. And I was like, Arby's has a chicken sandwich? So he said, yeah, we should go out. And so I went with him, and it was a pretty good sandwich. And that turned into, not every Friday, but a lot of Fridays we would go out to lunch after he went swimming. And, he was a great friend. I really miss him a lot. And he was always very inquisitive and engaging. And so when I got home and Jerry got home, both Ellen and Marion would go, what did you guys talk about? And Jerry would say nothing, and I would say nothing. And but we always had great conversations, and I enjoyed my time, in those lunches. It was very special for me.
Thank you, Dale.
Would you say something about the lunch chicken sandwich, Jerry?
Oh, yeah. So, can everyone hear me? Is it on? So, we had gotten home. It was after, it was not even maybe a week before he passed away. And we had come home and we were just busy taking care of Dad. And we had been running around. It was 2:00 in the afternoon, and we're like, what are we going to do for lunch? And, when you're ill and your appetite isn't good, nothing was really, sounding good to him. Who drives up? But Dale Morton drives up
with a bag with a chicken sandwich in it. And I was it was just perfect timing. And so I said, thank you so much. And I took it in, and he hadn't eaten hardly anything, but he ate half of that chicken sandwich. And it was just very meaningful and very, it really helped to show, their love and support for Jerry and for us.
I think Arthur wants to say something.
It's my husband. Oop, I
Thank
can't
you.
unmute.
So I was thinking, everybody, all of us been saying all these wonderful things about Jerry, and at funerals, that happens a lot. It's after the fact. So going back to all the wonderful trips, all the family trips that I know you are all aware of, I forget whose idea it was, but going back a few years, somebody suggested that at each night at dinner, one of us would take a chance or turn to say what we thought about both Jerry and Marion. And I thought that was wonderful. So for several years, Jerry's hearing Scott and Wendy, Vanessa and I, and every one of the grandkids saying something wonderful about them now, when he's still alive. I'm thinking how wonderful that was. So aside from the great time with the family spending together, I think I can look back and know that Jerry knew how much we all loved him and appreciated him.
Thank you.
Marilyn. You need to unmute.
Okay. I'm the sister-in-law, and we have a wonderful relationship, the four of us. And it's been, my husband just died. Mary Lee's brother just died. So it's been a long, long relationship. And to get a flavor of Jerry, we never saw each other that often. But as soon as I would walk in the room, he'd come up to me and he'd say, "You still doing it?" And I'm not going to say anything more, but that was Jerry's humor.
Oh, right there.
You can't be mad.
Back to the laws of profanity.
What did you say?
Back to the laws of profanity.
Okay. So,
Thank you.
Oh, I had one thing to add also.
On that note. All right, you need to.
Oh. I just wanted to add that Jerry and Marion Lee visited us in
her daughter
several cities that we lived in, and when we were living in California, Jerry had a grade school friend that he visited, and he had friends all over the country, really, from all walks of life that he kept in touch with, and I always thought that was really special.
Thank you.
Hey, can I say something?
Yeah, a few more people.
No, it's
Oh, it's here.
It's Paula.
Oh, Paula.
Hi, Paula.
Hi. I just wanted to say that he made my dad laugh so hard. And two of the stories that I remember the most from when I was little were when Jerry asked my dad, who was an OBGYN for people, to come and help him deliver a cow. And that was a really cool experience for my dad. He talked about that forever just because it was so different than a human. And they laughed a lot about that. And the other thing I remember is that Jerry had a tie, and if you turned it up and opened up the inside, I believe there were like Tahitian women in it or something. Like they were tasteful, but they weren't very well clad. And he wore it
They were naked.
he wore it to temple, and I can remember the two of them laughing, and I'm like, "What are you laughing about?" And Dad wouldn't tell me. And then after temple, they showed me the tie, and I'm like, "Oh, of course." But my dad was an OBGYN. I couldn't understand why that was so titillating, but he was. Anyway, I have lots of fun memories of them. He was such a joy. I just enjoyed him so much.
Delivered me.
Thank you, Paula.
They were saying that your dad delivered me.
Yeah, he delivered me too.
Was there someone here? Shira. Yeah, Shira.
No.
Wait. Go ahead, Cheryl. No, you go.
Should we over there?
Yeah, come over here so the Zoomers can see you.
Okay. The Zoomers. So, you know,
Ooh. Maybe I can't. I'll try.
You can do it.
So, Sheer Greenfield, been friends with the Michaels family for 50 years. Jerry was always very interested in everything I was doing. I'm a therapist and he loved the stories of, you know, the craziest adolescents I ever worked with and was always asking about a lot of different things. But he was also really aware that I'm a single person and my parents never taught me anything about money. And he really wanted me to think about my future and retirement, and I didn't know anything. And we kept joking. He kept saying he would help me, he would help me. And then finally, a few years ago, I went over and went down to the office. Marion had to stay upstairs. It was completely between me and he. And he shared his Jim Cramer wisdom, and we invested some money that I had, and he, thank you, would text me stuff, you know, whatever, this one stock that went like way up and then went way down. That was my last text from him, actually, which I just noticed, was Kramer says hold. But I really felt it wasn't about money, but it was really about love. And he wanted me to be okay and to be secure. And yeah, those were the text messages. The emails were all dirty jokes. Which I'm gonna miss. But yeah, I always felt that he cared for me, and I really did miss him.
thank you, Cheryl.
I think there was somebody else. on
Yeah,
the-
Shippers, did you wanna say something?
I'm Mark Schiffer. Jerry inspired me in several very much unrelated ways. I admired his readership and leadership of his classical book club, but I complained to him about myself that I have trouble dealing with the multiple characters in fiction. And he thought he'd ease me in gradually by telling me to start with The Old Man and the Sea, only one character. And separately, it may be surprising to you that Jerry inspired me as an athlete. At the swimming pool, which he went to, swam in every day, after the pool was reopened after early COVID, and I find myself swimming next to him, he being limited to his elementary backstroke, it occurred to me that he's swimming faster than I am. And that inspired me to take private lessons so that I could keep up with him. And in his last year and my last year in McHenry County, I found myself trying to get to the pool when he would be there practically every day. And that is the athleticism that was not limited by whatever arthritis or other complaint he may have had.
Okay, thank you, thank you. I think we're ready to go.
So I'll just add one other element. Yesterday was the yard site for our teacher, Rabbi Bernard Lipnick. It's been gone 12 years. And Rabbi Lipnick was an Emor boy, and he was a member of what he dubbed the Emor Club. Anybody who had a bar mitzvah, the Torah portion of Emor, made their way into the club. My son Zakai, who was born in and around this time, came to me. He was supposed to have a Torah portion later on, and he came to me one day and said, I would like to have Rabbi Lipnick's Torah portion. I'd like Rabbi Lipnick to teach me the Torah portion, and so they studied together. Often we would lose one of our children. We have 4 kids, so it was okay getting lost in the synagogue. That was fine, because somebody always knew who the kids were and they would return them, but we'd find him sitting talking to Rabbi Lipnick in the office. And I asked Rabbi Lipnick one day, what were you talking about? And he said, well, I told him that he shouldn't become a rabbi because my son wants to become a rabbi. He should become a veterinarian. And he said, why? He said, because you take dog and you spell it backwards. It spells dog. So I'm sure that Jerry was doing holy work, working with the dogs, but I was just thinking about that as we're hearing these wonderful stories. And by the way, this is the most fun that I've had at one of these gatherings ever. I hope it's being recorded so that we can use it again. So it's
being recorded.
And I hate it, but really, it's a thank you. And, you know, people are real. People are real, and there are funny elements to their lives. And I appreciate all the realism that we've shared today, and propriety out the doorway, just for the sake of realism. I was asked to lead us in the 23rd Psalm, and maybe we'll do it in Hebrew first, and then we'll do it together in English. Okay. If you know the melody, you can hum along. If you don't know the melody, you can fake it. Okay. Mizmor David, Adonai Eloheinu echesed, Hineno tesheyad bitzeni, al mei menuchot yenaleni, nafshi yeshovet, yanecheni, yanecheni b'magne tzedek, leman shemo. גם כי אלך בגיא למוות, לא ירא כי אתה עמדי, שבטך ומשענתך, שבטך ומשענתך. המה ינחמוני, תערוך לפני שולחן, תערוך לפני שולחן, תערוך לפני שולחן, נגד צורריי, תשענת בשם בן ראשי, תשענת בשם בן ראשי. Tishanta Vashem Meneroshi Kosirevaya Achto Vachesed Yirdefuni Kol Yemei Chayai Veshavti Bebeit Adonai ושבתי בבית אדוני לאורך ימים. As kids, we needed to learn this off by heart in school. I don't know if the rest of you had to as well, but you probably should, and do it in the Old English, okay? So if you know it, join with me. If you don't, please listen. Psalm of David. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He guideth me on straight paths for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou hast anointed my head with oil. My cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever. I was asked to chant the El Maleh Rachamim. It's a memorial prayer. Unlike the Kaddish, this one is about death. The Kaddish only speaks about life, and we'll recite the Kaddish in a few moments. So if you're comfortable doing so, I'll ask you please to rise, and we'll recite the El Maleh Rachamim, utilizing Jerry's Hebrew name, Yoshua ben Lev Ufeg. El Maleh Rachamim shochein b'mromim, חמצי מנוחה נכונה תחת כנפי השכינה,
במעלות קדושים וטהורים כזוהר הרקיע מזהירים את נשמת יהושע בן לב ופגע שלח לעולמו בגן עדן תהי מנוחתו. אנא בעל רחמים אסתרהו בסתר כנפיך לעולמים וצרור בצרור החיים את נשמתו. אדוני הוא נחלתו וינוח בשלום על משכבו ונאמר אמן. O God, exalted and full of compassion, we pray that you'll grant perfect peace in your sheltering presence among the holy and the pure to the soul of our beloved Jerrold, Jerry Michaels, who has gone to his eternal home. Master of mercy, we beseech you, remember all the worthy and the righteous deeds that he performed in the land of the living. May his soul thus be bound up in the bond of life eternal. God is his eternal portion. May he rest always in peace. And let us say together, Amen. Now in solemn testimony that links all of our generations one to another, let's join for the recitation of the Mourner's Kaddish, which is on page 136. Yitkadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabba, v'alma yiverach yirtei v'yamit malchutei, v'chayechon v'yomechon, v'chayei v'chol beit Yisrael, Ba'agala u'bizman karev v'yimru amen. Yehi shmei Rabba mevarach le'olam u'me'amaya. Yitvarach v'yishtabach v'yitba'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh. V'yitadar v'yitalem v'yitalach shmei v'kudasham v'rechut. Le'elam min kol birchata v'shirata. Tishbechata v'nechemata. Damiran be'alma v'yimru amen. Yehi shlama Rabba v'yishamaya. V'chaim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'yimru amen. Oseh shalom b'krama, u'yaseh shalom. Aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'yimru amen. May the one who ordains the peace of the universe ordain peace for us, for all Israel, for all humanity. And let us join together as we sing. Amen. Please be seated. I understand we have some closing remarks.
So first, thank you so much, Rabbi.
My pleasure.
You made it just very special and.
I did what you told me to do.
Well, no, wait,
That's how we like our rabbis.
No, wait, truth be
This is
told.
our first rodeo with this family.
Wait, truth be told, not what but Vanessa. She's the mastermind behind the cue sheet. But just a sincere thank you for making this very special. And for all of you being here, it's so meaningful. And I really wanted to do something here in St. Louis. We have family that's here. We have, of course, all of our good close friends. And it just was very meaningful. And really, it was Vanessa's idea because right at the time when Dad died, I said, I'd really like to do something in St. Louis. She's like, well, you could do a Sheloshim. So I'm like, okay. And so not having been to one, I mean, I knew what it, like you said, I knew kind of what it was. I knew Sheloshim at 30. And then it only was like 2 weeks later, she's like, oh, yeah, I guess I have to come and be here and be part of this. And of course, Mom's going to be here. So, so thank you for being here on Mother's Day, for taking the time to share with us. Zoomers, I don't know if that's the right term, but thank you for sharing with us this and with the hiccups and everything. I know we'll be talking to all of you who are Zooming. We love you. We thank you for, again, taking out time from your Mother's Day, your Sunday. And, we will be going, if not to Steak and Shake somewhere soon, to all of you. We love you. And for those that are here, sorry, Zoomers again, no one can leave without eating. I mean, you or take it with you. If you have to leave, you take it with you. We'll give you to-go boxes, and it's all kosher cones. And so if and we are, be happy to share more memories. And I'm going to close it out.
So we have a liner that we say at moments of this sort from Jewish tradition, Hamakom inachem etchem. B'toch sha'al avlei Tzion Yerushalayim. May God comfort and sustain all of you amongst all the mourners of our people. May you know no more sorrow, only times of goodness and sweetness and celebration of simcha, as we say in Yiddish. So let's say together, Amen.
Amen.
Let's get
Amen.
the business of eating, which is very good. So very good.
Thank you, Wendy. Thank you, Vanessa.
Thank you, Wendy. Thank you, Vanessa. Thank you.
Thanks everyone here on Zoom.
Say, for all the ladies, we have something special for you. Do not